tapestry unbroken, such an adventurous journey to places far and near, up toward shining galaxies, to inward visions clear, from tops of highest mountains to depths of endless seas, so many forms from Maya's touch, parts of her ever-changing dream, until you wake me from this dream. Please be in this dream with me. Mother, father, child, friend, my dearest beloved. There are heroes and villains, there are sages and saints, there are singers and lovers, and there are artists with paints, there are parents and children, and very powerful kings, there are rich men and poor men who are beggars of many things. There are Bengal tigers and king cobras and grand elephants, such great oceans and fishes with deep secret haunts. There are mountains and valleys and great flying birds and storm clouds and rainbows and so many songs to be heard. There is laughter and there are tears, there is hope and there are fears, there is courage and there is strength and there is sorrow. There are songs to be sung and so much work to be done, and prayers to be said for today and tomorrow. There's night and then there's day, as time keeps on slipping away, affecting both the old and young in this whole world spinning. There is shyness and boldness and warmth and coldness and unending compassion for all under the sun. Chapters in a life build up to a lifelong tale, through days and months and years, as long as time prevails. From thoughts and words and actions, life's tapestry is woven into patterns so very intricate, with artistry unbroken, such an adventurous journey to places far and near, up toward shining galaxies, to inward visions clear, from tops of highest mountains to depths of endless seas, so many forms from Maya's touch, parts of her ever-changing dream, until you wake me from this dream. Please
Good morning. Jayanti, that was a gorgeous song. It sounded new. I don't remember hearing it before, but it's perfect for today's talk. Today we're going to be talking about the veil of ignorance, and I think many of you have come before, recognize that as one of the things that Ramakrishna talked about in the Gospel. He said, the veil of ignorance, this is why we don't see God, because we're holding up a cloth between ourselves and God. We live our lives. We're all doing it. We have life as we have planned it out or as it has been presented to us. We've organized the events that we have. We have dreams and expectations. When we were young, we knew we were going to get through school. We did know that. And we had to get through it quickly because it was really tiresome when you were in the third grade. You wanted to get outside. You didn't want to stay in that classroom anymore. Then we get through our schooling. We decide if we have the opportunity, we go on to higher education. We make plans for our lives. We decide on a direction we're going to go. We pursue a career, maybe we don't. In today's society, it seems that people do not have to stay with a career as they did a couple of decades ago. People move from job to job, and they're quite successful doing that. You want to find someone to love, someone to share your life with, marriage or not. Doesn't matter. Children make the decision or not. But we do have a dream about what our life will be. And our lives develop along those lines. Sometimes an unexpected event happens and the whole plan of our life is thrown askew. But we reorganize ourselves and go forward. As we live our lives, we form friendships with groups of people. And they're people that we share our interests with. People we go hiking with, people we go biking with, people we maybe take classes with, cook with, volunteer with. We get different interests, have a book club. And any number of things we do that can break our workday routines. We call that relaxation, mental growth, physical health, and we do these things. We take up things to make our bodies healthier, hopefully our minds healthier. And sometimes we're happy. We're happy doing these things. We define it as happiness. Sometimes we're sad. Sometimes we're frustrated, especially if you have, difficult people in your life. There's frustrations. But this is our normal progression through life. Some happiness, some sadness, some frustration, some as an old song used to say, that's life. That's what we define it as. And we're semi-satisfied with it. But when we have this life, that's the good life. There are people in this world who have to deal with much more difficult road. They have to deal with poverty. They have to deal with homelessness. They have to deal with war. They have to deal with being frightened for their lives every minute of their life. And this is not the good life. We recognize this as part of the human condition because I think everyone's familiar with the concept of karma, which philosophically can explain the disparities in people's lives, but really only philosophically, because we all still have emotional reactions to these disparities. Illness can bring on many things. We've had a great test of our centeredness, I'll put it, with the pandemic that we have all finished. I have finished with. I think we're all finished with it. And philosophically, we can explain all of these disparities, but there's something still in our very being that says it's not fair. This is not right. So we start going to, what can we do? What can I do? What can we do? Well, we've had a civil rights movement. We've had women's lib movement. We have had all kinds of social movements to try and try and alleviate some of the problems of the disparity of society. And we feel that we can do it. We can facilitate these things because we feel that we are powerful. But what is this really? This feeling that I can do it. This is the very definition of Maya. The very definition. I can do this. It's our delusion to think that we, as this small ego, can facilitate much of anything. We are, as long as we see these differences, we cannot do much to improve the situation. The improvements in the situation will start when we see unity. We have all kinds of things that we can do with self-effort. We can improve things. We can make strides in mitigating some things. We can take social action. And sometimes it's helpful, as long as we don't feel that we're doing it ourselves. As long as we feel that we're part of a greater reality that is moving towards an improvement. And we can take advantage of things. We can improve our own personal lives. We can take advantage of adult ed classes here in Santa Barbara. They're wonderful. There's a lot of college degrees online now. I've been seeing the advertisements for them. There's a lot of things that we can do to improve our own situations. These are the positive steps we can do, and we can help others do them. We can point it out to other people. They have a wonderful program, Big Brothers, here in Big Brother, Big Sister here in Santa Barbara, which is wonderful. We know quite a few people who have done that. And you help young children broaden their horizon and see what else they can do. But the catch is that we have to want to do it. We have to desire to have this change. And many times people are immobilized by the habit of negativity, and they are completely immobilized. I can't do that. Let's see, they don't have the energy to start, okay? And this is something that becomes more and more entrenched if we don't start. We can make so many excuses for ourselves. So many. Oh, I can't get out and exercise now. I just don't have time. no, I need that new pair of shoes. I mean, I can't take a walk in the mountains without this new pair of hiking shoes. Now, I want you to all look at pictures of what Hillary walked up Mount Everest in and what the Sherpas walked up Mount Everest in, tennis shoes. They didn't have anything really fancy or protective for the elements. They had determination. They did not need all the external accoutrements. Oh, if I just had 2 more scoops of ice cream, that would really make me happy today. And it's comforting because I need comforting right now. So I'll do that. And I can't deprive myself of this. It's not going to make any difference. 1 drink won't matter. You know, 1 drink doesn't lead to the next one. That's okay. I can handle that. We do these excuses for ourselves constantly because we want to excuse ourselves. Some of these excuses are mindless habit. They're habits we have gotten into. One of mine used to be walking by chips, and I couldn't resist. Oh, 1 chip is not. It led to a whole bag a long time ago. It doesn't anymore, thank God. But yes. It doesn't matter. I'll still get up at the right time to meditate. It won't matter how late I stay up all night this evening. Well, it does. You're like in a fog if you stay up too late and you can't sit down and meditate. That's important in our lives. So why do we do this? Sometimes it's straight out what we call tamas, the guna of lethargy. We do not want to, we just don't do it. And as everyone, I think, has heard many times before, the only way to get out of tamas is to incorporate rajas, which is action. So the instant you feel like, I just don't want to go out and walk the dog right. Dogs are good. You have to get out and walk them. But sometimes you don't feel like you have to walk yourself. As Swami Swahananda once said to one of our nuns, he was a little blunt. He said, "You're getting fat. Don't you ever take your body for a walk?" And I mean, I kind of remember that when I get to feeling really lazy and I think it's time to take my body for a walk. And that's one way to look at it. It's not, I have to do this. It's your spirit and your being, your Atman, is taking this car you're in for a little ride, making it get out and do its thing. So some of them are that kind of thing. We need to take action to get out of our lethargy. And it takes a strong amount of determination. You have to make yourself do it at first. After you've done it, made a new habit, then it isn't so hard to do it every day. Otherwise, we've all done these things. But we also get to the point where we keep saying to ourselves, but something's missing. Something is missing in my life, and I don't know what it is. Now, the thing that's missing is we're never going to be completely satisfied or completely content as long as we're looking for an external cure. As long as we're looking for external behavior, external solutions, we'll never be content. Because the whole purpose of life is to realize our true self, our Atman. And in order to do that, we have to look inside. As I say, this body is like a car that we're driving around. We just have to keep it clean, fueled, and in fairly good condition. It doesn't have to be tip-top. It just has to get us from one place to the other. But we have to, the path to peace is the internal struggle. Now, I'd like to read one thing that Swami Ramakrishnananda said in answer to a question, why are we not happy? And he said to this person that asked the question, it is because we are mistaking the unreal for the real, that we take all this Maya so seriously. We regard the play as real, and the player is as unreal, whereas the player, or God, is the one reality, and the play of creation is unreal. If you analyze your own life, you find how vague and uncertain it is. A birth, a death, and a little space in between. That's what we call life, the little space in between. Out of darkness you have come, into darkness you will go, and you call the space between life. There was no dream. Then you dreamed, and then again the dream will vanish. This little span of life is just as much a dream, just as unreal as the dream that comes to you in sleep. At any moment, death may call you away. It's not a negative thing to remember that we will all experience death. Death is a part of life. How do we want to experience it? That is the real question. How do we want to face it? Do we want to face it, embrace it, and know that we are we are rejoining the unity of the reality of God? Or do we want to go thinking, oh, what's next, what's next, what's next? We have only one thing to do to find contentment and peace and real happiness, and that is to realize God. And how do we do that? That is what we call lifting the veil of ignorance. And you make it a daily habit to think of God every time you can. Those of you that have a mantra, every time your mind starts to wander, just say it a couple of times. Bring your mind back to the thought of God. Because that's all really, it is that simple. Think of God only and you will realize God. Most of us, though, can't. We have distractions. Swami Shivananda said in answer to a question that a young woman asked her, "You ask me why we forget him, my daughter. This is what is called Maya. Under the spell of Maya, a person forgets God and remains attached to sense objects which are impermanent. Do you love God as much as you love material things? Do you think of God as much as you think of material things? Must I tell you that the world, as well as this body of yours and the relatives to whom you are so inordinately attached to, are short-lived? You see before your eyes that things existing today do not exist tomorrow. What is here this moment ceases to be the next moment. A person born today may die tomorrow. Sorrow comes soon after happiness. Yet people find joy and are deeply engrossed in this world. We look for distractions. Our ego, we have spent years building our ego up, is terrified that we will let it go. We will lose our individuality and our identity if we let go of this little ego. That's not true. As soon as you identify with God, you are so much more than this little tiny self that has to be looking outside to protect itself, to entrench itself. You become the universe. You become one with everything and everyone. And our ego is terrified. It's going to look for everything to hang on to. You have to sacrifice the ego in order to realize God. But as I say, the ego is unbelievably tenacious. It's like a 2-year-old. I want this. I'll be happy if I have this. Like the Gospel of Ramakrishna says, the mother does not come to the child so long as the child is engrossed in its toys. And at this point in our lives, we're fairly engrossed in our toys, whatever they may be. However, our mother is still watching out over us to see when we want to put down the toys, and she'll come running. We think that we know the best way to live our lives. Now, I don't know if any of you have had the experience of wanting something to be one way. And you want it so desperately that you try it over and over and over again to force that into reality. I want that particular house. And so you spend maybe years checking on it, looking at it, seeing if it's for sale yet, talking to the person who owns it to see if you can get it. And then you get the house. Now, I know this happened to someone. You get the house and you're very, very happy. And then comes the debris flow. And you no longer have the house. Because in one way, it's your ego, the ego of that person, that had demanded that. It was not anything to do with how circumstance was going. And I'm not saying a negative circumstance or, oh, I'll just wait for God to do this for me. You do your work. And if it comes easily, then you know you're doing the right thing. You're following the path that is going to help you. If you have to push and push and push and push and push, then maybe it isn't the best thing. The only time you push is to realize God. And that's difficult, but the only thing you're pushing against is your own self, your own small ego. You're not pushing against society, you're not pushing against other people, you're not pushing against, that's the struggle within yourself. And that's the one that is the most difficult challenge and the most rewarding. It demands a lot of discrimination. It demands a lot of self-analysis. How do I lift this veil of ignorance? I look at every single thing I do, or as much as I can, and determine whether I am doing those things that lead me towards God or those things that don't. And I mean, this is, yeah, it's tiresome. It is tiresome, but you do it if you desire to know your Atman and God. If you want peace, contentment, and what in the Bible they said, the peace that passeth all understanding. If you want that, then it takes hard work. And it's like, well, should I go visit that neighbor who's sick? Well, I really have something else I want to do. Now, we get into the debate with ourselves, right? The debate wastes more time than just going over and saying, taking a cup of soup or saying hello to your neighbor who's sick. Then you go on with what you have to do. Most of our procrastinations and distractions are selfish. Most of them. Sometimes we excuse ourselves and do volunteering for good works, but when we sometimes, now this is not always, sometimes we are seeking appreciation for that. Now, is that a selfless action or a selfish action? Or is it mixed? Only you can tell what you're doing things for. But you have to analyze what you're doing. I mean, oftentimes, oh yes, we, 35 years ago or so, when Transition House started, we started taking part in it. And we were getting congratulated a lot on the quality of the meals we were taking down. And the natural instinct was, ooh, I'm so glad they really appreciate that. Well, we had one time when someone told us exactly what they thought, and in no uncertain terms. And I thought, okay, they really didn't like that. One woman came up and she said, one of our devotees had worked extremely hard in doing some chicken teriyaki, and she had really worked hard, and she'd put it in the back of her car. This was years and years ago, and it had gotten all over her trunk and everything when she was taking it down. It was really a mess. And this one homeless woman came up to her and she said, I can't eat this. It's just not cooked properly. And everyone was kind of like, oh, okay. There was a place, I didn't like the reaction, but there was a place that I thought, I'm really glad that homeless woman still has enough self-identification that she feels she's equal to say, I don't like this. Now that may just be me, but I don't want to see people downtrodden or hopeless. I want them to have hope and to act on that hope. All of it is still part of this ignorance that keeps us from God. But as Swami Vivekananda said, you have to be well-fed, you have to have some leisure in order to think of God. It's a waste of time to try and do that if you're scrabbling for existence. You cannot do it if you're scrabbling for existence. So you want people to have a little inner stuff that says, I can do this. We also have to remember that there is, we can call it karma, we can call it whatever. There is a plan in this existence. And the overall plan is that we all enter the play of Maya in order to go back to Brahman. That's it. It really is that simple. Out of Brahman floweth all. Yet is Brahman still the same. The dream flows out. We all take part in it. We're all actors in this play. And we all have a role to play. And whether we get to quit the play is how well we do our part. How well do we play our part? Now that means, even the villains are a major part of it. The good people are a major part of it. And then you have the extras. And the extras are the vast majority. They haven't gotten the starring parts yet. They will eventually. Everyone will. And we will all realize who we are and identify with the Atman within and know that every single one of us is basically the same. We come in different packages, we come in different ages, we come at different times. One of my favorite poems is a death poem by a Zen monk. Barefoot I entered the world, empty-handed I left. Two simple actions that got complicated. And think about it. I mean, we all come in as babies. We all go out the same way. And what makes us think we're different? It's the complications that we have partaken of in the interim. And they are just complications. Think about your own lives and how much things have changed. When Swami Ramakrishnananda said your life is vague and uncertain, think about when you were small and what you wanted and what you did. And then as you grew up, things changed. And things took a different turn. I mean, quite frankly, my own life took a major turn. I never would have joined a convent. I never thought about it. It was karma. It was, I don't know what it was, but things all fell in place, and all of a sudden here I was. And I'm still here. So, and I honestly and truly don't feel that it was ever a decision that I really made. It was just simply, I knew that if I were to realize God, I should stay here. But it wasn't like, oh, I have to join a convent. It kind of sneaked up behind me. We get the grace of God, and that is what helps us to lift this veil of ignorance. Because to quote Swami Shivananda again, there is no way to lift the veil of ignorance other than self-surrender. Surrender your ego to the infinite. I don't care what you call it. You can call it God, you can call it Mother, you can call it anything. But surrender your ego. All you have to do is be here in the moment, living what you're doing in this moment, not planning ahead, not living in the past. Because in this moment, you and God are one. But we have to recognize that. We have to surrender to it. And it really is simple. It's a simple concept. It's just really hard to do. So, and Swami Turiyananda said, the perception of unity, we have to perceive it and feel it, is knowledge. That is not. Perception of variety is ignorance. So as soon as we have that one-sidedness, the veil of ignorance will be lifted. And I think I've talked long enough. Jayanti, will we have another song? If anyone has a question, I'll take one or two, but I hope you don't. I'd rather hear Jayanti sing.
Lead us from illusion to truth and wisdom's sight. Lead us from the darkness that fills half the night. Lead us from death to endless life, to your heart of love, to your eternal life. Reach us through every veil that seems to hide your face, beyond our every ignorance, beyond both time and space. Give us strength and courage through thy precious grace, and fill our hearts with your love by your sweet, compassionate voice. Om Tat Sat Om, Om Tat Sat Om, Om Tat Sat Om, Om Tat Sat
We have a few, let's see. Wednesday, we will have the reading of For Seekers of God at 5 o'clock here in the temple, on Zoom and on YouTube. Saturday, we will have Gospel of Ramakrishna at 5 o'clock here in the temple, on Zoom and on YouTube. Next Sunday, Pravrajika will be speaking on choosing gratitude. And I hope you can all come. Now, okay, we'll end with a chant. Maybe. No, I don't think we are. I think we're going to do it from... I think we're going to say Happy Halloween. And have a good time today. Don't get into any trouble this evening. Okay. Oh.